Hello, everybody, and I'm back here in the fandom zone. In YouTube Entertainment today, Mr. General Zod. And today I am going to talk about the latest episode of Petty Dreadful City of Angels, and that is the episode Maria and the Beast. And for the most part, for this particular episode, there wasn't there wasn't really a lot that went on in this one. This was a little bit of a slower episode, but not in the sense of slow as bad, just nothing really happened. And I think that that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that in uh, in all actuality, we needed an episode like this to kind of slow the pace down, but the dialogue and everything was still really good. So my general overview of this episode is this. Basically, this episode picks up right after them supposedly closing the case from the last episode. Everything is great. People are celebrating. Tiago feels like shit. And so he is not particularly happy. He meets with Sister Molly, and they're having their fling still going on. And you could see him really feeling the weight of the decision that they made last week to kind of cover up these killings. And I really like in how this show seems to do what most movies don't do these days. And there's a lot of from Tiago and them, there is a lot of him feeling bad about these choices. Like he's always been on the line as far as a character goes, but in this instant, he feels like he actually did something wrong. So, uh, long story short, nothing really major happens in this episode, but it is a lot of setup. And you kind of get a little bit more insight into what Magda and Santa Muerte's relationship is, which gathering by the closing of the episode is not very good. So, um, still don't know what her game plan is, but I think what I like about this show the most is that every episode I watch a little bit more of the pieces of whatever the end game is are starting to fall into place, and I'm starting to see where each person is starting to fit in their particular role that they're playing. What she's driving towards. You can see her moving these people literally like pieces on a chessboard, and I find it very fascinating and just highly interesting. Uh, Magda and Santa Morta are the most interesting characters to me because they are right now enigmas. Like we know who they are, we know that they're supernatural, but beyond that, there's not really much backstory. And now going through it, I'm really getting more and more intrigued. The little tidbits that we do get, like tonight, uh, or yet last night. Sorry, I watched it. Literally finished up this morning, but the tidbits we're getting from these two is pretty interesting. So, not much really happened in this episode, and that's the brief overview. And this episode was about a 6.5 for me until the very end, which bumped it up to a 7 because Maria and Magda have like the first conversation I've seen them have in this show, and it is so great. And this is the thing that's interesting about this show is that it's not necessarily a lot of action that happens. It's the dialogue is very enthralling. It's very suspenseful. I mean, uh Jonathan Logan knows how to write dialogue, and the dialogue in this is superb, top notch. And really the conversations feel tense, and they're what makes the scene actually tense because when you have building up a story, you can have it go one or two ways, and every television show does this. You have one or two episodes that are just kind of there. They don't really add to the story. There's nothing really useful. They call them filler episodes, basically. And all it does is fill the season run. But this only has 10 episodes, and I don't feel like from 1 to 7 right now, any episode has been wasted whatsoever. I see where each leads into the other one, and it's great too because not they don't have a hook at the ending, and I feel like that's a big vote of confidence, right? The writer feels like he's engaged you enough to where he doesn't have to always give you that jump scare or something else like that. It could be something simple as a conversation ending, and that's the end of the episode. And I think that this Penny Dreadful versus the original, this one has a lot more craftsmanship in the story, and I like it doesn't feel as simplistic. So, what up, Stone Cold Jeremy? Good to see you here, buddy. We're here talking a little bit about the new episode of Penny Dreadful. Gonna give you my thoughts. Let you know what I thought of episode 7, Maria and the Beast. So a lot is revealed in the last 5 minutes of this episode. I clocked it because I got through about 45 minutes or so, and I'm like, this is good. I'm appreciating the back and forth between characters, but I felt like this might be the filler episode, but I was wrong. The last 10, 15 minutes or so really were important things that happened. So, you know, my rating for this episode is a solid 7. I've given most of these episodes, except for the last, the interrogation one, got a solid 9. That was great use of the room and the space and everything else like that. This one is a solid 7. Good stuff, still good. I think overall this season might fall into that 7.58. We'll see what the last episode score, and then I'll give you a series overview to wrap everything up. But for this episode, there's not a lot of characters in play in this episode. I mean, you kind of see everyone, but they all have most of them are on the back burner. And the highlights of this episode really are Tiago and Josefina and Maria, and then Peter has a little bit and his kids. But all in all, this episode was really light on jamming in a whole bunch of characters. And I had said in my other reviews that my problem with this was there were a lot of different people to focus on and a lot of storylines all over the place. And it feels like the writing is getting tighter and they're starting to focus down on certain characters. And I appreciate that. I felt like last week getting the gang out of there and kind of finishing up their arc freed us up to explore more with Townsend, to explore more with Maria, with Santa Muerte, with Magda, and kind of get their perspective. And this is interesting because Magda, I'd say, is the majority of the focus of this episode, but more her personalities. And this episode is her finally, you're seeing what her plans are, and her plans are converging. Okay, so with Townsend, the councilman, she has a great scene in the bathroom with that bitchy councilwoman. I hate her, and it was interesting to see Magda get visibly pissed off at this lady. The lady basically threatens to expose whatever her secret is, and it's a really interesting conversation because the Natalie Dormer strikes me as using people, but this councilman woman is coming hard after Townsend, and she says some things that are really kind of cold and callous. A little bit of man hating in there. And I like the fact of how Natalie Dormer replies to her character because I feel like she stuck up for him. And I don't know if it's because she has plans for him, which she says, I have plans for him, but she plans on making him president. But it was more of, this lady attacking this guy and her pairing it with some very clever wordplay. And I appreciate once again the show showing a good balance. Like, the male and female dynamic is very even and it's very on the level. And I appreciate that you have females that stick up for males, female characters that do terrible things. It's a very balanced show. And even though it's a show that could be seen as steeped in politics, when you watch the show, it really doesn't come off that way. It just feels like a story being told. Um, the other big highlight in this episode is Tiago and Lewis. They're staking out the Nazis, and once again, the guy who plays Lewis, hats off, fantastic scene of them scouting these Nazis, and he's talking about why he has such hatred for these Nazis that are infiltrating the American structure, and he tells a story about a distant cousin that he knew in the Homeland, so to speak, the old world, and how the Nazis during the beginning of their invasion they had went in and they had taken over that part of Germany, and no one had said anything, and his cousin was Jewish and gay, so he said he was a double threat, which I thought was fucking hilarious. But the story was sad because they hung this dude on a meat hook and they took pictures and they sent it to Hitler. And I thought there was something like, you can drudge up these stories continuously. We've all heard the horrendous stories, but it's how people deliver it and whether or not you believe the person who's delivering this line. And it really hits home. And like to see this like little Jewish resistance that's going on, and he tells Tiago, "Hey, I got your brother out of this jam. You owe me. Now we're going to investigate these guys because a bigger threat is the Nazis apparently are talking with this scientist kid who is working on a missile, and this missile could be ground to air, could reach miles. You could reach from like Germany to like New York. That's how long range. It's a VAX missile, and it's really intriguing to see both of these storylines kind of converging because Magda is behind the Nazis as well. So I'm still not gathering what exactly her end game is, but it's definitely has to do with a lot of destruction and mayhem. Peter. Peter was boss last episode. I don't care what no one says. Kicked the wife out. Sent her to the sanitarium. Hilarious scene. Like the wording of that episode had me crying the way he kind of shut her down. And so now he moves the new girl in, and you know how kids are. The kid is not having that. Now, hats off to the kid who plays Natalie Dormer's son, Frankie. That kid is creepy as shit. Like, it is hard to find good child actors. Good child actors are very hard to find. Uh, you know, either they're really good or they're really terrible. Either they're believable or they're not. This kid is the creepiest looking kid I have ever seen in my life. And he doesn't really overdo it, but he talks very low and he stares and he's got this freaky ass look on his face. And when you see him, you're just like, oh, like that kid looks like the next serial killer or something. And the great thing about it is it's not overdone. The kid doesn't overact it. He just has that look of a creepy ass kid. Like, you know how your kids have a friend over and there's that one kid who you're like, yeah, that's definitely a little Jeffrey Dahmer in the making. That was this kid, man. This kid Frankie is bizarre. He has a moment with Peter's boys. The older brother ain't trying to hear it. He doesn't want this woman in the house. He wants his mother back. the younger son kind of formed a bond with this kid, but then you see him starting to get a little bit nervous about him, and he has this hamster that he has in a wheel, and I don't know what little devil Frankie Powers is, little devil boy. I don't know exactly what his if he's got some of Magda's power, if he's an extension of her or whatever, but he looked at the hamster and it died. So PETA would be pissed right now. But yeah, it was a very effective scene because it really shows that kids have a different perspective. And in this extreme situation, these kids just sense something isn't right. And especially the older brother, whether it's out of the fact that he wants his mom, of course, but he also just sensed that there's something off with this kid. And the younger brother is starting to kind of get that uneasy feeling too. So I really liked this scene in particular because it shows you can be scary without being gory. You don't have to rip someone's intestines out to be terrifying. And I like that this show doesn't go for the immediate visceral gore. It goes for little subtle moments that are really haunting. Like it's a look or it's a scene like this. To me, that's really terrifying because it's like this kid is with his kids and this kid is creepy as shit and he talks in a whisper and why? Oh, who could think that kid was normal? But anyways, so that was pretty good. Other than that, not much real development on Peter's front. You know, the whole "I love you," I'm glad I dumped my wife off. I'm tired of living sadly. Oh, and Natalie Dormer meets Maria again. Okay, but as her other form, this German woman who is she's pretending to be the abused wife to get in close with this guy, and I don't know if they directly know each other before the end of this episode, but Maria says that she gets like a sense. So I don't know if she can necessarily pick out when Natalie Dormer takes a different appearance. I don't know if she can necessarily spot her, but she's got like a feeling or a vibe from her. They both do because you can see it in glances that they exchange whenever they've interacted but never directly talked. And in this episode, she not only gets to talk to Magda herself, but she talks to one of her forms. And it is hilarious. She goes to old homeboy and goes, "Yeah, you need to get rid of this housemaid. You know what I mean? The kids need to speak German. Why are they learning Spanish?" And he ain't having that. So she realizes she can't push that issue and she backs off and kind of scales it down. But it's really interesting that now Maria and Natalie Dormer's Magda have crossed paths in several different spots and hadn't formally been introduced. And it's really intriguing to see them interact with each other. And Maria, okay, so Maria, she's a sweet old lady. I really adore her character. I almost wish we had more scenes with her, but I think maybe that's a good thing we don't. Because when you get her on screen, she's so nice and she's like the heart of everything wherever she is. Like she's the heart of the family in that place that she cleans with Peter and his boys. She is like this force of, I don't want to be corny here and say like this force of good, but she's almost got this like light about her and this realness and down to earth about her character that I notice a lot of people gravitate to. And it's really interesting because her personal life is falling apart. And yet, despite that, all the struggles and all the strifes, and you know, her one son killing a cop, one son covering up the murder of the cop, and the other son, you know, being taken out in a riot. Now, Josephina joining this crazy ass church that we don't know what their game is. She is really like struggling to hold her personal life together. But yet, when she's with this other family, you would never know. She plays it so cool, and she's almost like a mother figure to these boys. And this actress is really good. My hat's off to her. Like, she can be emotional, she can be angry, and then she can switch back to like this person that you just know and you feel like you've always known, and it's really great. Like the acting in this show is superb. I can't say it enough. Like the acting is really on point, spot on, good stuff. And I think that's why even with a slow episode like this, I never once got really bored. I was just more interested in what's going to happen next, where are we going to go from here. But in the end, it did kind of feel like a filler episode. I mean, we've had exciting episodes from 4, 5, and 6. So 7 was a nice little reprieve, a bit of a break, and we got more insights into characters' lives. Townsend and the gay Nazi guy, he has a talk with his boss. He might be catching some feelings for him. So that's nice, I guess. But it's interesting to see because this guy, he calls him ice cold. He says he is ice in his veins, but there's something about when you're with someone, you expose yourself, and even if you're playing the role of getting close to someone, you have to get close to them to be effective. So it's really interesting to see this guy actually catching feelings for Townsend, and it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen, because if the order comes down and he has to, like, say, kill him or beat him up or something like that, is he going to be able to do it? I don't know. But the Nazis are just kind of moving the pieces together. We don't really know what's going on. We saw them buying land. So apparently the Führer wants a plot. He wants to buy some land here in America. Telling you, everybody wants to come to America, even the Führer. But yeah, it was really interesting to hear them talk about Hitler and how he liked paintings and architect. And it's really intriguing how the show shows the manipulation of the Nazi party and how really they are charismatic. And most people who are human beings, but evil human beings, they do have charisma to them. I mean, how do you think Hitler got these people to follow him, right? And in turn, all of these people he has, all these soldiers and these lieutenants he has, they're very smooth talkers, and they're very good at getting into people's heads and manipulating them to do what they want them to do. And I found it really fascinating and intriguing just seeing this guy talking to this architect, and the architect guy who is supposed to build this rocket for them is just all sorts of confused. The cops are onto him. Lewis is onto him, says, "Hey, man, you don't help me, I'm going to beat your ass." That's pretty simple. Nazi guy's like, "Hey, Hitler's not such a bad guy. He wants to build a house right here. He loves Hollywood. Build this for him." And it's so interesting to see that contrast between these two opposing forces. And the Jewish side can come off as the really sympathetic and at the same time kind of cold and calculating. But my God, think about what happened to those people and how they've had to be this way and had to survive. And I find it really fascinating, the contrast between both of these sides and the overarching. I feel like it's going to come down to these two factions meeting here in America. I don't know how, I don't know when, but Lewis wants to take this guy out. He knows who killed the people he sent to spy on him, and he wants to take the guy out. Like him and Tiago had their guns loaded, but then the German dudes sat by all of these high-profile people. And here's the interesting part of this whole scene is that the Germans have sort of, eased their way into different parts of our society. They are in with the newspapers, they're in with the councils, they're in with all of these different people in an attempt to mask and camouflage their own shit that they got going on. And I really dug that. So that was a really good part. We had a little bit more into what the Nazis are planning. We got a little bit more of Lewis following them. That's pretty much his storyline there. The rest of it was all pretty simple. I mean, this isn't going to be as long as of a review because there's not really much to break down. This de-escalating episode. So the other characters, I felt either they weren't highlighted or there wasn't much to do with them. So I'm just going to skip over the rest of them. Mateo has a short scene, but it's just like, I killed the cop. I'm feeling bad. His sister goes on because she's joined this church that Sister Molly is a part of. And, he's like, I can't talk to you anymore. So who knows what that means? But Mateo's about to jump off a cliff. I mean, he's already gone off that ledge, but he's about to take a whole lot of other people with him. Like, this scene served to show you how he is clearly regretful about what he did, but he doesn't know how to get himself out of it. And once again, I like this dynamic with the brothers because this reminds me of my brothers, right? And he is the youngest of the siblings, and he is constantly getting himself into trouble. And this time he's killed a cop. This is the most serious trouble you can be in. He can't talk to Raul because Raul is just a wreck. My man hasn't gotten off the couch since like episode 2, so he ain't helping no one. Josefina found religion, and his brother is an investigator. So he has nobody, and I think you could talk to his mom, but who really goes to their mom, right, with that stuff? You feel like you got to handle it, but it's all crumbling in. And I think that served as a good way to show Mateo's world collapsing around him and him feeling like there's nobody around him to help him out. He's got nobody. He's on this island with this secret. And this is the type of stuff that destroys people. And I think this is leading. I mean, I don't want to call early predictions, but I think Mateo is either going to wind up killing someone really important or he's going to die. I don't know which is which, but something's going to happen because he is dangerously close. Like, he is on the edge of doing something phenomenally stupid. So it'll be really intriguing to see exactly what is going to happen with that character. Now, let's get to the highlight, okay? So the main focus of this episode, I feel, even though you did the split between the different characters, the main focus of this episode is Maria. So let's talk about Maria. And I did highlight a couple of things, but Maria is the matriarch of the family, if you will. She's been this glue, right? And there's so much good dialogue in this episode with her and kind of explaining how her family is falling apart, and we get to see many different sides of her in this episode. She finds out the news that Josefina is not going to be going to Catholic church. She's going to the church with Sister Molly, which I want to say is kind of like a Christian maybe or an Orthodox. I don't know. They're really non-specific on that, but if you come from a Catholic household, that's like you might as well just go up to your mom and slap her in the face. So there's this great exchange. And this part of the episode really highlights Maria losing her family because she gets into this argument. You know how Spanish families are, and her mom it just gets upset and more upset, and then she's like, they kind of not really have a yelling match, but elevated voices, we'll say, and she storms out of the house, Josefina, and Maria looks at poor Raul. And I feel so bad for Raul. Look, in the first episode, I never thought he was bad for what he was doing. He was protesting a railroad going through his home, his family's home. I understood that. But poor Raul, man, he has not been a factor or really influenced in any of this. And the show addresses that in this scene. And it's so great because Maria looks at Raul and goes, and look at you. You just sit on the couch doing nothing. And I was just like laughing my ass off because that's like, if you've ever been in a household with Spanish people and they get upset, you just need to stay out of that radius because they're going to hit everyone in the room. So poor Raul was sitting there drinking a beer, man, just thinking about his life choices, and got bitched out, and I felt really bad for him. But I think it also highlighted that Raul is in this point where he almost died, and I don't think he's quite recovered from that. And I like the fact that they didn't take one episode and he just snapped right back into the action. I mean, he is not the same person he was in episode 1. There is something about him, like, he was so passionate, he was so vocal in his beliefs, he was willing to go against the cops, and now he just seems broken. And that's the theme that's been running through these episodes, is that Maria's family is breaking apart. And it's a subtle theme, and it's literally said in the episode. So let's get to the last like 5 minutes of the episode. And this is where the episode pulls itself from a 6.5 to a 7. Maria summons Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte comes, and I just got to say, the actress does a phenomenal job because literally she really doesn't have any lines. But her mannerisms and the way she acts the character out, honestly, you want to give this character a hug. Like, just honestly, I've said this 1,000 times. This is the saddest character I've ever seen in a television show, hands down. Like, she is always like, but she's deaf, and I gather that's not really a happy vocation. But it's a different sadness. It's like something I can't explain, but almost like a weary, just tired of everything, doing your day to day. I guess death for her would be her job. And she has nothing. Like, it appears to me, Santa Muerte used to be the god that they would call upon, and she would come and counsel them. And now, when she comes, she's almost annoyed and doesn't want to be bothered. And it's a really interesting way to approach this topic. It's a great dynamic. And to see her and Maria, they go back and forth, and she gets mad because at this point she's like, I'm losing my family. Your bitch of a sister is causing a rift between us. What's her deal? And why aren't you doing anything? And she's like, I can't, it's not my business, yada, yada, yada. And then I didn't even expect this. Like, I saw the promo, but I still didn't expect them to do it the way they did it. But Natalie Dormer's Magda comes in, and so great. Just so great acting. She comes in, and like the spirits do, just kind of out of nowhere, and she's like, yes, sister, tell her how you won't help her. And I was like, oh snap. Like, when she does her Magda voice, it's probably my favorite. And her and Maria have a sort of philosophical debate, along with Magda wanting her to worship her, because she says, you're worshiping Santa Morta, and, humans, you all worship these different gods. And she's like, you worship me, and I'll get you your family back. I'll bring them back together. You could be happy. You guys call me, a destroyer, but my sister's literally the embodiment of death. And I was like, she's got a fair point. You know, I don't know exactly what Magda is. I don't know if she's chaos. I don't know if this is something personal against humanity. We really still don't know much about her character. But what I do know is she wants people to now, listening to this conversation, she wants people to acknowledge her. You know, it's almost like it's almost like she feels like she's being ignored, and she's doing all of this as a way to get man's attention. I could be wrong. I could be totally off, but that was the feeling I got when they got into the discussion about various religions and cultures and how, you know, you guys pray to all these different gods, yet no one prays to me. Why? Because I destroy this and that. So I want to say she's some kind of god of chaos or destruction or something like that. But she's also bitter about it too. And maybe even bitter that people don't worship her. That's just the feeling I got. But the dialogue was really great between them. And there's a moment where Maria appears to be considering what Magda is saying. And she says to her, "Begone, you have no power in this place." And she goes, "Oh, please," as if you mean that. And it's true because it didn't have that kind of like, get out of here, you're not welcome kind of thing. It was more like, get out, you're not welcome. Like someone comes into your house, no, bro, leave. You're not welcome here. That kind of a thing. Not a real angry, like, get the fuck out. It was more of a, you know, I don't want you here, but I'm going to listen to what you have to say, kind of a get out. And so she goes on, and as they're debating, it's like a spark is reignited in Maria because some of what Magda is saying is hitting. And then they get into the belief system and things like that. And she really challenges Maria's beliefs. And Maria, you could see the spark come back into her. And I think it's a combination of everything that's happened within this episode, right? Everybody around her is giving up. And essentially, that's what I took from this episode. You see a lot of people giving up or giving in to their feelings, right? Or giving up to their situation. And Maria is in that position where she looks like she might do the same, and then she says this incantation and talks about how as long as she lives, she will always fight her with her dying breath, foreshadowing, I have a feeling. And she finally banishes Magna out of the room. And it was a really great scene for me because you can see from the first time when she says the incantation, and there's no feelings behind it, there's no emotion, so I don't even think there's real power in the words. But as they're talking and she's getting more and more pissed off, you can see her, kind of coming back to life and getting that reignited passion and saying, "You know what? I am not going to listen to what you have to say. You will not influence me. I need to stay strong." And she totally gets her out of this room. And I could feel within that it was like what had been building with every other character, right? Every character has had a test and they've failed in one point or the other. Mateo had a test with the cop. Tiago had a test with his brother. Raul had a test in the very beginning, and all of them have failed. But Maria has still not given up on her faith. She's still not given up that Santa Muerte will get her shit together and actually help man out here because Magda is laying down the roots. And this episode served for nothing else but to show her plans starting to come together. The pieces are slowly moving to the center of the board. And it is going to be interesting within these next or last three episodes to see exactly how it all plays out. We got three more episodes left, okay? We're going to have 8, 9, and 10, and then that's over. And I feel like this has been really interesting. Like, I'm always used to having 13 episodes, so 10 episodes is a little weird for me, but it's been a really interesting ride, and I'm more interested to see if he pulls off this whole big plan. And I got to be honest, watching this, the groundwork that he's laying doesn't feel like it's just one season. Like it feels like he's bringing stuff out to maybe have another season or two so that he doesn't like, you know, leave himself with no story. But also too at the same point, some of these episodes feel self-contained. Those last three episodes feel like a block of three episodes, right? It was those three and that story is over. And I think that's a smart way to write it because, shows get canceled. So I will at least like to see a resolution to this whole Magda Santa Muerte thing, get more backstory. We got 3 episodes left, and I still don't know shit about Santa Muerte or Magda. I think at one point it's a good thing because it leaves mystery, right? I don't want a show to tell me everything. I want to figure some stuff out. But at the same time, I do want to know something, anything as to the reason. Um, but there's 3 episodes left. Next episode could be the episode where we get what happened. And there's something that happened between Santa Muerte and Magda because Magda has some banter with Santa Muerte and talks about how, oh, you're icy cold, just like you are to me. And Santa Muerte cried a single tear talking to her. So there's something. There is something between these two gods, these two mythical beings. And I almost have a feeling like whatever it is directly responsible to us, right? To what's going to happen with us. It feels like there was an argument or a fight. And I almost feel like Magda is blaming humanity in a sense for whatever happened with her and her sister. So it'll be really interesting if these last 3 episodes give us more backstory. I don't need the full 3 to do it. I need maybe an episode. Just dedicate a whole episode into telling us why these two hate each other so much, why Magda hates humanity, why she wants to see them all destroy each other. Um, I feel like it, even if you put it at 9, that'd be a hell of a episode 9 to just kind of go back and forth and switch from the past to the future and show what the beef is and then have some other events going on. So we'll see. Anyways, there wasn't much to this episode. I normally do an hour, but this was a shorter, very concise, very to the point episode. Um, Great acting, great great cinematography and filming. Really great shots in this episode. Uh, there's a nice little contrast, especially in the bathroom scene. Really good stuff. That last 5 minutes was epic. I loved it. All 3 of them in the room talking back and forth, and it felt very climatic. And I honestly can't wait to see these final 3 episodes. Oh boy, folks! Oh boy, we're getting close to the season final. My only thing is, and the only thing that worries me is, I want to have it all mean something. Like I know you're planning on season 2 probably, but I'm hoping that everything comes together and makes sense. And that's all I want because this show has been fantastic and I would hate for it to like fall apart at the home stretch. So, anyways, thank you everybody. I know I had 2 to 3 people dipping in and out. I really appreciate having you guys here for these reviews. I really enjoyed doing them, even if there's one person watching. I just have a blast reviewing this. My next review I'll probably do. I decided I'm gonna do a series review because it's already a couple of episodes in, but I'm gonna be doing Billions, and there's a show that Father Zod asked me to review here, so I'm gonna be reviewing Yellowstone. I'm gonna post a review for seasons 1 and 2, and then I think I'm gonna do an episode by episode for season 3. Everyone tells me it's a phenomenal show that I have to watch it. So I'm gonna just blow through season 1 and 2 and get ready for 3. But Kevin Costner is my boy, so I'll probably have some reviews up for that. But thank you everybody for joining me here today. Uh, if y'all liked that video, make sure you're smashing that like button. By chance, if you watched the replay and you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And yeah, I'll see you back here Monday for another episode review of Penny Dreadful's City of Angels. Y'all take care of yourselves and thank you very much.